Okay, well, it's review time again, and today I thought I would review the remake of House on Haunted Hill from 1999. Now, the original, of course, is something of a classic. It's directed in 1959 by William Castle, a director famous for his gimmicks with Coward's Corner and putting buzzers under the chairs in cinemas to give the audience shocks. For The Tingler, which was also released in 1959, being probably the most famous examples. Vincent Price and Carol Omart do an amazing job of portraying Frederick Loren and his wife Annabelle, a rich, dysfunctional couple who hold a party, the exteriors of which are shot at the Ennis House, designed by Franklin Lloyd Wright, inviting a bunch of desperate or perhaps deserving guests to risk their lives for 10 grand. It is a brilliant performance from all concerned, and the effects and stages are amazing for their time. However, there are no ghosts in the movie. The haunting is all down to the machinations of Loren and his wife. Cut to 1999, and the release of the remake, directed by William Malone and starring Geoffrey Rush as theme park mogul Stephen Price, the surname of the character being a direct homage to Vincent Price himself. Malone wanted the character to look like John Waters, apparently. However, the similarity to Vincent Price is unmistakable. What he describes as Geoffrey Rush plus John Waters equals Vincent Price. And Rush certainly brings a performance that Price would have smiled at, in my view. The rest of the cast include Taye Diggs, who plays a retired baseball player, Famke Janssen, who plays Price's wife, Evelyn, and Ali Larter of Final Destination fame, who plays what would traditionally be the final girl, except here Diggs and Larter end up forming a final pair, which is pretty much telegraphed throughout the film. You add in a down-on-her-luck TV personality played by Bridget Wilson-Sampras, Chris Kattan as Watson Pritchard, who's the owner of the house and the only character who has the same name as a character in the original, who was played in the original by Elisha Cook Jr., who was a very memorable performance. There's also a dodgy sidekick and Peter Gallagher's equally sketchy doctor, and we're ready to go. So, Malone was a little annoyed upon seeing the original because he was promised ghosts, and in this one there certainly are some. Criminally insane, tortured spirits haunting an old asylum, the main antagonist being the menacing and psychotic Dr. Vannicut, played by the always superb Jeffrey Combs. As in the first movie, it's the rich guy's wife's birthday, but this time the stakes are raised. $1 million are on offer for each of those who survive the night. What follows is essentially an episode of Scooby-Doo set in hell. The set pieces and sound design are genuinely creepy for the most part. The statues designed by anatomist Gunther von Hagens, the blood tank, the stained glass ceiling, electroshock, and above all, the sinister hallucination-inducing saturation chamber all fire the imagination. People suffered and died in these halls, and they are still pissed off about it. From the opening titles, we know what we're in for here. This is going to be ham, but it's still going to be scary. Essentially the ideology that made 1950s horror films effective in their day. And there are some nice touches effects-wise, such as the off-use trick where the camera can see things a human eye can't, some spinning heads reminiscent of Jacob's Ladder, and some creepy visual effects on Dr. Vannicut, who thankfully is used sparingly here. The music is perfect. Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams is used well, while Don Davis's score fits the tone to a T. An interesting note here is that Manson himself was considered for the role of Dr. Vonnegut, but couldn't do it due to his busy schedule. People get dispatched in a variety of gruesome and interesting ways, and the twists are similar to those in the original movie, so if you've seen Castle's version, you can guess what's coming for the most part. The reason that this group of people have been chosen to be at the house is out of a cereal box, quite frankly, but it works for the subgenre that the movie fits into. Of course, it's not a perfect film, and the biggest letdown, in my opinion, is the CG effects. I mean, the idea of an evil gestalt made up of the souls of Vonnegut's victims and the colleagues of his who perished in the fire that claimed the building in the 1920s, all combined into a Rorschach test, is an interesting one. But the CGI just wasn't up to snuff at that time, in my view, either for the final reveal of the entity itself, or for the rather hokey inclusion near the end, which I won't spoil, as the finale kind of hangs on it. Some of the dialogue clunks, but not loud enough to drown out the screams, so that kind of balances itself out. The film is, of course, formulaic, and its ending is predictable, but I would put these things down to the subgenre and what the film was trying to do, rather than calling them criticisms necessarily, and there's certainly nothing egregious enough to taint the original here. Also, interesting point, if you watch all the way to the end of the film, there's a nice little post-credits scene that reminds me of the final shot of Pit and the Pendulum, which is another classic, starring Vincent Price from 1961. So in conclusion then, if you like House on the Haunted Hill from 1959, this is probably worth checking out, if only to compare the two. While both films are fun, the original only promised ghosts, whereas the remake has them in spades. It was slammed by critics at the time, but I think it was because the tone wasn't what was expected. It kind of looks and smells like a late 90s movie, but the film takes its cues from an age of cinema 4 decades earlier, where ham, overacting, and above all scary fun were the order of the day, and it is on that level that the film delivers for the most part. However, as always, and with all of the above being said, I hope you enjoyed this review of the 1999 remake of House on the Haunted Hill. Please like, share, comment and subscribe, and all that other good stuff, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers for watching, and bye for now.